Hey friends, welcome back. You're listening to episode number 69. On today's episode, my new friend April Tribe Giauque is telling us her story of marital abuse and how she escaped with her 5 beautiful children and has gone on to help others escape as well. April is a podcaster, author, empowerment speaker, and now remarried mother of 9. Listen in as she helps us navigate our role in rescuing victims of domestic abuse, what you should be looking for when dating to hopefully prevent becoming a victim, and how to build a network of the right people in order to leave a toxic situation. Recording this episode was so emotional as I've left my own abusive relationship before, and it brought back so many memories, some of which we discuss here today. So buckle up because it's a bumpy ride, but spoiler alert, it ends up very, very well. You're listening to the Live with Audacity podcast. Hey girl, hey, I'm Melissa Stewart, mama to 4 kiddos ranging the age from college student to first grader, wife to a high school football and track coach, and a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Audacity is defined as intrepid boldness or disregard for normal constraints, and that's exactly what we have here. As a super busy mom who is easily distracted, I struggled to get focused on my goals and see results in my life and business. But I realized to make any progress, I needed to implement simple, efficient systems that worked for us without adding to the overwhelm and making me feel boxed in by rigid schedules. And I want to help you do that too. This podcast is aimed at giving you tangible tips and tools to get your life together, finally focus on the calling on your heart, and do it all in the way that works for you. So come on, boo-boo, it is time to get focused, get intentional, and live with audacity. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Live with Audacity podcast. I am so blessed to get to have April Giauque here today to talk about her books. She is an author, empowerment speaker, writing coach, and ghostwriter. And you guys, she has an incredible story of overcoming. And it's so interesting. We can kind of get into that a little bit later, but April comes from a abusive marriage, and she has learned how to overcome and really create a life that she now is so in love with. And first, can we just talk about how you have 9 children? That's bananas.
Yeah, sure. You bet. Okay. So the 9 kids, I always knew I was going to have a large family. I just kind of had that feeling. And I guess it's kind of in the family. My mom, I'm one of 5. So, good size. And my mom's one of 3. Okay. A little small, but her mom is one of 8, and her mom's the bottom of 11, and her mom is the 7 of 9. So,
oh my gosh.
It comes in the family. So
yeah,
I just
amazing.
had that feeling that it would be me. So
yeah,
here I am.
I thought 4 was a lot.
Yeah,
4
it is
like nothing.
Well, see, they didn't all come as a litter. Like
I know.
It wasn't all just like right here. So
I'll take
space
these 9
in between.
children. Thank you. Yeah, and they're all pretty close in age too, right? What are their ages?
So 22, 21, 20, 17, 15, 11, 9, 7, and 6.
That's so incredible. You've spent like 20 years of your life pregnant.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
tell us, well, first, I didn't even welcome you to the show. Welcome to the show, April. I am so pumped to have you here. When we talked originally, oh man, your story hit me in the feels so much. I come from nothing, I don't think, compared to what you have been through, but I have my own experience with it. And I did a salt float later that day, and I just had this download, this inspiration, like, I want to work more closely with these types of women. So if you don't mind, I would love for you to kind of dive in and tell us a little bit about your story and how you became an author.
All right. Well, buckle up. No, just kidding. Basically, because I always wanted to have a big family, well, that comes with marriage, right? And throughout my life, I just always knew I was going to be a mom, and I wanted to have a good marriage. And I had always pictured marriage as, of course, there's going to have trouble and trials, but I always thought we were going to be like together, like team dream, like all together. And the trials and stuff that come up, together you face them. And
Yeah.
which, I don't think that's too far off to think about what you would do with a marriage. And the thing about what I did not do, and so here's something really important, ladies out there. Dating is investigating. I'll say it again. Dating is
Ooh.
investigating. I didn't have my investigation hat on very well with my first husband. It you're excited, and maybe within the culture you grow up in, that you got to hurry and get married, and you don't want to be the old maid or the spinster. And I know that's kind of weird to hear. Yeah, it's kind of weird to hear now, because marriage is kind of being delayed and put off. And in my era, I'm not like born in 1908, but kind of, in my era, it was still like, hey, try to get married as soon, younger.
It's like that's your purpose, right?
Yeah. And it's exciting because you want to have these children. And I always feel I know that bringing children in within a marriage, it allows the child to have the best of both worlds, a mom and a dad, and not all these different kind of complexities of things. Now, I'm not saying that if you have different types of families, it's not welcome. Of course. I am just saying that I know that gives the most options and the most ideal for kids. So I know, not a debate thing, but I just knew that this was going to be part of it. But I didn't do a lot of investigating, meaning I didn't really see him under a lot of stress. So I didn't know how he would respond to that. I saw him in a lot of places where he was doing a lot of work. So I'm like, okay, hard worker, check. Like, you're looking for things, obviously, but there wasn't enough time between the time we started dating, the engagement, and marriage to kind of test out some of those things. So that's kind of the background setting. And he had some struggles with drugs and alcohol before he got clean and sober. And he was clean and sober for about 4 years. And that's a pretty good amount of time. You see what I mean? So I was like, okay, check. These things are good. And he didn't have any violence in his past. I knew that he had done those other things. And that was high school. So that doesn't excuse it. But, in high school, you're not necessarily, having big relationships and going through a lot of, what you would do in college. Anyway, so kind of experimenting and thinking about
you're
things.
Going to be as an adult. Yeah.
Right. You're still learning. So I kind of gave another pass on some of those things. Again, not too much investigating. Then when it came to the family, his is a kind of a yours, mine, and ours combined family. And on some of those combinations, I didn't know the background of the story until probably 3 or 4 years in. And then learning, family secrets, I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of big. Wow. And I didn't see anything displayed in his behaviors at the time. So I'm like, okay, I guess we dodged the bullet on that, So again, I just didn't do a lot of investigating. And we were in love and soon became pregnant with our first one within about 4 or 5 months of being married. And I'm like, we are in for the family. And I was so excited. And
how long did you guys date?
6 months.
Okay.
So
been there.
Yeah, not too long. And that concept of I'll put the word romance or the Jane Austenizing way that we want to, romanticize things. I always knew that we could just work through whatever it was, and together we would make it. Those are really true statements if both are on the same team and the same page.
Amen.
So when stress started to happen, he got really nervous about things and reverted back to drinking, and then eventually to drugs. And then eventually I found out. And, that adds a whole different dynamic. But we had a skeleton in the closet that he wasn't even aware of, which was schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
So we were married in our early 20s. And if schizophrenia is going to manifest itself, it's between ages of 19 and 25. Generally speaking, that's when it will strike. And it did. And we didn't know that at the time. And in my book, which I'll talk a little bit about in Pinpoints of Light, Escaping the Abyss of Abuse, I discovered these types of behaviors and things which were not connected directly to the drugs and alcohol. And because, when people are drinking or whatever, obviously they're in an altered state, but then they sober and return back to, quote, their normal, right? To kind of a baseline. Yeah. When we weren't returning back to the baseline, I'm like, there's something else happening here. Well, I'm fertile myrtle, so I'm having kids like crazy. And we would go in cycles. So the cycle was stress, tough, hard. He's a construction worker. He owns his own construction business. He's building multi-million-dollar homes. He's trying, right, all this stress of all of that and making sure the client is taken care of and yada, yada. All of those things are happening. And then it's a lot of stress, more alcohol, more drugs. And then these strange behaviors are happening. And then we kind of hit that bottom. And then we rise up again, and he gets sober. We go back to church again. He repents, and we figure things out and try to do things more. Well, on those cycles of coming back up, we never reached back to the level we were before we started to go down. We would always kind of go a little bit under. And then
that's a very good point to point out, though. Yeah, it's just, it
was always just a little under. But when you're drowning, you're like, hey, I'm above the water again. Right. Ooh, life's better. And maybe before you were maybe swimming at your chest level, and now you're kind of more at your shoulder level. So you're like,
but you're still not dead.
I'm still not dead. And in that time frame, I would usually become pregnant again because we built trust again. And then the stress and everything would start happening again. Now, after about 2 or 3 years of this type of cycle, the physical abuse started to come into play. The mental and spiritual abuse were definitely there. But I want to take this moment for a second just to describe what abuse, of how I understand it, and through research and whatever. I describe it in 2 ways. I describe abuse as a hunter. Like, the person who abuses is either a hunter or they're a caged animal. The majority of us would probably say that we see hunters, right? They know how to lure in their prey, very narcissistic. They know how to camouflage their flaws, and right, they're hunters. They just know what they're going to go after. They know the weak. They can fish out the weak part of the herd, right? And they know how to groom. They know how to do all of that. Then we have the others that are that caged animal, which is definitely more what my husband fell into. And in that caged animal scenario, it was more like, when you approach an animal that has been trapped, they don't know if you're there to help them or to hurt them. They don't know. And add schizophrenia to that, where you've got hallucinations talking to him saying she's, bad news. Yeah. Every time I would quote, reach out towards him, if you think metaphorically, through the cage, that's when we would be struck. And that's when things would happen. So it was more like of a trust. But the end result is abuse, right? It doesn't get excused. Right. And as my children are coming more rapidly, because we would have these cycles, suddenly I started noticing with the kids, like, that's a little strange behavior. And we had my first 3 boys really close together. And then I was pregnant with my daughter. And by the time she was born, I was facing an actual diagnosis on my first 3 boys all having autism.
Oh, wow.
So that added another multi-level into surviving, where I'm trying to make sure that their tantrums and their things that happen aren't setting off him. Otherwise he's going to, freak out.
Oh
And
gosh.
it just added that extra layer and dimension. So the the
Your stress level must have been absolutely ridiculous, insane. Like, because we hear a lot about, manage your stress and keep your stress, level in check to prevent inflammation, to prevent illnesses, to prevent, like, how did you do that? How in the world did you? I mean, obviously, it would be obvious to me that you probably didn't manage it very well, but you tell me. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, that's an interesting thing. So this kind of goes to something that when we were talking before the show started, I'll go into this quick story, and I share this story within Pinpoints, but um, basically, I think survival is within my bloodstream, right? It's in within the genes, and we can actually now we can see the environmental and social and the social stresses that actually happen on genes and how they will actually change and shift and then be passed on to the next generation. They actually can do this now and see what's happening. Well, back in the day, my fourth great grandmother, she and her family, she was number 7 of 9, came over to America, and they wanted to join where they felt they had joined a church and they wanted to be together with the saints in Zion. And so they had purchased passage on a boat. They come over here to America, come down the Erie Canal, take a little hike, get over to St. Louis, and now they're going to be building handcarts. They throw their gear in the handcart and start pushing with a company called the Martin Handcart Company to get to Zion, which was actually in the Utah Territory at the time. And the year is 1856. So that's the time when a lot of people, right, they were going west to California for gold. They're going up to Oregon. So we got groups of people coming west because the trains haven't quite connected yet. And the unfortunate thing about that group is that they left in the late season in July of 1856. And then they were trapped in snowstorms in Wyoming. And like we all experienced, Texans, that week of freeze and cold and snow and all of that. Yeah, it happened for them in October. Yeah, the insanity. Well, there's 9 kids, and out of those 9 kids, only 3 survived.
Oh
so
my gosh.
they were orphaned on the plains of Wyoming. So what is your choice? She's 5 years old. She's 5. What's her choice? To sit in the snow or to do what? Rescuers eventually got there, and the rescuers, after they passed out the food and tried to get people going and moving, they kind of looked at everybody and said, sorry, you have to keep walking. So they had to keep walking in the snow and everything and going. So I say that story because I drew a lot of strength from her. And that comes through the bloodline, right? And so when you ask me about this stress level, I wasn't like, oh, I got this. Wasn't quite like that. But I'm like, if she can do it, I'm going to make it. And it kept the calm because the storm is raging all around me. So I had to do that. Now, there were early mornings where I would escape the house and I would walk around the block or the field, right? Because I had to have a moment to scream, to shout, to cry, to walk, to get it out physically. And so I would set a timer for 30 minutes before anyone else would wake up in the house and then be able to get back in, and take care of the day. So it was tough. It was tough.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about what I'm sure people have an idea of what emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, and mental abuse is, but I don't necessarily know how I would describe spiritual abuse. So do you mind talking a little bit about that? Because that is literally how I found out I was in an abusive marriage. Was I Googled it one day. What is abuse? Because I want to know, am I being dramatic over here, or is this like a real thing? And that's truly how I found out, is like, oh my gosh. And it really, really illuminated what the problem was and labeled it so that I could manage it or make a decision about it. So tell us a little bit what your perception is of those.
So my understanding and how I interpret the spiritual abuse was my, I wasn't, how do I say this? A lot of the things that I believed in were getting mocked, were getting twisted, were getting, just, they weren't as believed as they were prior to. Now, I never lost my faith, and I always held strong to my belief that Heavenly Father was there and helping me through all of this. And for that, because I had made promises and taken out covenants, I'm like, I'm in, and I'm fully in. And so that part never left. But what was really challenging was that so many around me, especially, my husband, it was just sheer mockery. And to live in a home where all that you believe in is mocked is really tough, right? And I could tell when the shifts would happen for him. I could tell when he was listening to his people, his mind friends is what I ended up calling them. I could tell because there was this sinister part about it. There was a lot of things where I just double blink and think, I have never heard you express yourself like that at all. And then he would say something just so wretched and terrible about faith, about beliefs, and then shred it down on me or say, and you're not worthy of it either. And so it's a mental game that is now connected and eroding the faith that you're clinging to, of any kind of hope. And that was a spiritual abuse that I endured. But I never quit going to church. I never quit. I never gave up on the testimony that I had already had, because I just knew that it was my only pinpoint of light. If you've ever been in a room or a cave or experienced absolute darkness, and you can feel the muscles in your eyes like shifting, like trying to reach for light.
For light, yeah.
That is something what I felt, especially after the birth of my fifth child. I was in that bottom of abuse, and I was searching for any kind of hope, any kind of light. And then suddenly a pinpoint was just kind of hovering there in this darkness. And I know it's kind of, symbolic and metaphoric, but I reached towards it. And as soon as I got closer to that, I saw another, and another. And it led a trail for me to get out. And this is what I tell women all the time, is that if you're going to leave abusive situations, you have to learn how to network. You have to put together a team. You have to do these things. Now, again, when I'm in this abusive situation, I'm not thinking, oh, it's time to build my network. I'm not thinking that.
Exactly.
I'm thinking,
exactly. That's the last thing on your mind.
There's somebody that I could reach to. Right. So you're trying to figure out, okay, I know I need to get out. And just FYI, everybody, those victims who are in abuse realize that they're in abuse and know that they need to get out. And you approaching them and saying, hey, guess what? You're in abuse and you need to get out. It's not helpful. So don't be that person.
Yeah.
Be a supporter. And what a true supporter is somebody who can sit beside you, and you are expressing, you're venting, you're doing whatever. And then sometimes at the same moment, you'll still shift and say, but I still love them. Now, the person that's listening to this, being your supporter, has to just listen. They can't say, and so now are you ready to go? No. The person who is in abuse, they don't have any control in their life. And so in order for them to trust you, they need to know that they can. Right. It's just like a first responder.
They need to know that you're not going to be someone else that's trying to control their situation. Like, okay, come on. Are you ready? Are you ready? And pushing them to do something that they're not ready to do. Yeah, totally agree.
That's exactly the point. And so when you if you've ever been in that supportive situation, whether it's been with a coworker, family member, a friend, whether you know that they're in abuse or not, your best job is to always show up and be there. And that's it. It's like a first responder. When the firemen arrive, they are not starting to ask, who started this fire? You started this fire? Who started it? No, they're there to put it out.
Right.
And they're there to rescue. And so as a supporter, that's your role. And those supporters that do it well, you have built trust for a lifetime. They don't ask questions, they are just always there, because we never know when the timing is right to flee, to leave, to get out. But when we know, we know. And we have to be able to trust and call on that person. And that's what happened in my situation. It happens in so many situations.
Do you think,
have to
really
be
quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that women always know that they're in an abusive relationship? Because that was not my experience. I didn't know that that's what it was. I will say that I have been friends with people in those situations, and I know that a couple of them did not realize that that's what it was. And I handled it terribly, terribly. Of course, now, I know better, and approach things totally differently if that situation were to ever arise again. But how is there a tip to help someone maybe understand what's happening?
If they're in abuse?
Yeah. But they don't realize that's what it is.
Right. There are definite ways. And here's something that I say to a lot of people. God gave you your guts. Trust it.
Yeah.
If there's something that's always a little off, if there's something that's always a little, trust that. There's something wrong there. Love and friendship and relationships are not meant to be perfect. They are messy, but they're not destructive. If you feel put down, shamed, wonder, whisper, oh, I have to get home at a certain time because I know, bam, it's going to happen. The eggshells are going to crack. And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking what's going to fly out of their mouth. I'm talking what you will be allowed to do or not allowed to do, how much money you could have or not have. There's all these little subtleties, and there's great books out there. And a lot of people, kind of the buzzword right now is narcissistic behavior. And it's there, it's out there in lots of different ways to think about it. And I want you to realize, if anyone is feeling like, well, that could be me, the first thing you need to start doing is building yourself an exit plan. Only you will know when it's time to exit. And that's what I'm really talking about. And so once you hit the awareness, whether it's in a few years down the road with this relationship or suddenly 25 years. So just as a side story, my really good friend, she took one of my books. She was reading through it, and she felt like she could be a supportive role for somebody who she had met at work. And over the years, she just was that support. Well, the time came, that day came, and they said, I'm out, I'm gone, I'm going, can you help me? And she arrived there, and on her nightstand was a copy of my book. And she said it was through reading the book that she gained the strength to say, I'm in abuse. Like 30 years of marriage, right, where, from that social and cultural perspective, it's like, well, women are just 30 supportive. It's okay. I've just accepted. And she finally stopped accepting that she had to be his fix-it shop, that she had to always help, that she had to always go in and rescue. And she, right? And it wasn't what we would think of like these big events and, he's always strung out on heroin or something like that. No, just the simple things and the cuts, right? The cutting words, or the, are you going to wear that? Things like that. They're always subtle, but you have to, if you don't say, why, what's wrong with this? And you draw a boundary line, and they come back and try to push yourself within it, meaning putting you down in shame, that's a flag. That's part of this dating and investigating part, where we have to realize things. Now, if behaviors haven't been that way and suddenly they start to shift into that way, there's other things that might be coming out. What's other stresses? Is there drugs and alcohol now? Are there drugs and alcohol now involved? Could there be some mental illness? Could there be some depression? What's happening? And to find out and to investigate and to reach a point to say, this is the boundary. Please go get yourself some help. I love you. I hope this all keeps working. I'm here if these things are able to come across. If not, I have to tell you, I'm out. And, it's a fine line. And you know your abuser best. Yeah. I hate to say it like that, but you do. Like, how did you leave? Melissa, like, when were you like, oh boy, I'm done?
Yeah.
How did it work for you?
After I Googled what abuse was, it took me a little bit of time to, oh shoot, sorry, my phone's trying to talk to me. It took me a little bit of time to recognize that it wasn't going to get better. Or if it did get better, it was, like you said, never going to get to the place where it was like we were going to be, maybe not never. I'm sure God could have worked a miracle at some point, but like, I don't know. But I was so done and broken, and I don't know. I don't know how I left. I honestly don't. I would have to really like go back and think about. Oh, never mind. Yes, I do. I remember I started acting out. I had been with him since I was 17, and we got pregnant 6 months into our relationship, and we got married 3 months later, and had a couple of kids. And then I started acting out. I started going out all the time. I started cheating. And when he found out I was cheating, you know, that was a whole disaster and mess. And finally, I just had the audacity, that is literally where that comes from. That's why that word is there, to say, I just had the guts one day and I was like, hey, I think we should get a divorce. And that was really hard. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't like you were pointing out, it wasn't one of those things where it was like, I'm leaving in the middle of the night or anything like that. It was just like, yeah, I'm not going to put up with this. And I'm not being who I really want to be. Being a cheating wife is not who I want to be at all in any way, shape, or form. That's not who I want to be. So I started to understand and realize that this was causing me to not be the person that I truly am. So anyway.
Yeah.
So I had a quick question. Because you are a Christian and divorce is kind of a hot topic within Christianity, I don't think maybe so much anymore, but it's still a thing. It's still a subject that is touchy. How did you reconcile that with your faith?
So this is really interesting. And unfortunately, I've met many, many people who the church advises, stay with, endure to the end, keep going, do your best, that kind of thing. And through the abuse of everything that was going on with us, I finally went to my church leadership and I said, here's the plan, Stan. I'm leaving. I'm done. And I had a plan. So I wasn't asking for permission. I know people probably don't, but do you see what I mean? I didn't go in with, should I? I'm not sure. No, I had already faced all of these things. Now, it took me a while. It took me, by the time I knew that I was going to leave, to the time I had made my plan, to the time I had told, church leadership, so to speak, had been about 18 months. So wow. I was well prepared that by the time I sat in that office, and it wasn't that I had been called into the office or anything like that. I just was like, hey, wanted to let you know that I'm out of here and I'm done. And I didn't necessarily say, this is why, this is why, this is why. I just said, this is where I'm at and this is what needs to happen. It's for the sake of and health for myself and my children. And he said, what do you need?
Amazing.
I know. And that response for me was like, all right, let's go. And I was very innocent and didn't realize that is not usually the response. I didn't know. I know now, but I didn't know. So I was like, all right, I'll tell you what I need. And so I was able to give some ideas. And my plan was to then let my husband know. And then I knew it was going to be kind of rocky and I probably would have to separate for a little bit and then finally get the divorce. Well, that all wrapped up in about 12 hours and we had to leave in about 8 minutes. So it was a little bit different and I won't share the whole story because it's in the book, but yeah. So that part didn't exactly pan out to my plan. However, I had enough network that even though this emergency plan letter Q was happening, right, versus my ABC plan, my letter Q came out and I was like, hey, y'all, this is the new plan. And those that were my true supporters were like, I'm here. No questions asked.
Yeah.
And they were just there. It was amazing. So blessed. And I know that comes down from faith and from God and from all of it, because God loves him still. Still to this day. He's in state prison right now. And he still loves him. And I know that.
Right.
And that was one of the best. That was actually the timing that I knew why it was time to leave, is that I had been released from my calling. I had been forgiven. I had been like, it was time to go. The understanding and impression that I got was, he's my son too. And I've got him. And I was so freed, because there is a worry. And I'll acknowledge this with so many of your listeners, because we feel a sense of nurture. We feel a sense of, well, we could probably help.
Support, obey, submit, that whole thing. Yeah.
And we're not the savior.
You get that twisted thing. Like, if I just have enough faith, something can happen. But sometimes you have to have that faith in yourself that you are worthy of way more than you are dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't.
Once I knew. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you can't save them. They have to want to save themselves and do the work to save themselves. And that's how you know whether whether you should stay and try to work on it or leave, right? Like, are they there? Are they on the same page as you? And you said that at the beginning, like, you have to be on the same page. Like, are you trying to get better so that we can deal with this? Or are you just like, not? Totally agree.
Right. Yeah. And he had a demon he was dealing with. I mean, the mental illness was huge. And until he was able to get some help and acknowledge that, I knew that these behaviors would be. And so, like, when we went to family court for the divorce, his schizophrenia exploded in the courtroom, which was a saving grace for me, because the judge saw it, because he actually tried to shush the judge, and he was talking to his mind friend in the courtroom, and they were having a discussion, and the judge was like, excuse me, I'm addressing you. And he turned to the judge and told him to stick it. And my eyes are down, and I'm like, oh, okay. And the point of all that ruling came across so beneficial for me, because it was all on him to be able to see the kids. It was all on him to be able to set up appointments with Child Protective Services. It was all on him. And the judge could see that his mental state was never going to actually allow that to happen. And he started to scream, no one's going to watch me, watch my kids. And so it was like my escape.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen them for over 14 and a half years.
Oh my
now,
gosh.
On the divorce decree, it still says 1 time a week, supervised visitation set up by, and it has his name. He's never once done that.
Oh, wow.
So we've never once had to do shared partnership and things like that. So I'm very, very blessed in that way. And I count my blessings daily on that, because there was enough happening. We were working with autism and working on recovery from abuse and being homeless. When we left, we were homeless. So I don't recommend that, being homeless in a van in the winter. I was still working full time, being a teacher and still going to my master's program, but the van became the home. Because in my, I'll say, innocence, I had no idea that there were waiting lists for apartments. I had no idea that these other things had to happen. So name went on the waiting list, lived in the car. We went to people's homes. We got a hotel for a few nights, and we just kind of did this thing, but we always showed up to work. The kids were always in school, because work became my lifeline, right? I was able to make a living wage. And even though we were homeless for a temporary time, about a month, we were still able to make it, because I had made a plan. Again, that little month was kind of whoops, but overall plan worked out really amazingly well.
Oh, wow. Just so
And that's
incredible.
about the Pinpoints of Light book. Woohoo!
Yeah. So do you mind telling me what the first pinpoint of light you saw was?
Yeah. The first pinpoint of light was when I was, so that whole trek I told you about with my grandma and stuck in Wyoming. Well, there was an opportunity to do a reenactment of that with our church family. And so I went and did that. Now, this was planned. And just hours before we're ready to leave, he says, I'm not going. John needs me. And I started to feel myself fall into the victimhood again of like, no, we've been trying this is so important, right? I was in that kind of zone and I literally kind of hit the wall. Like I was kind of talking to somebody and I kind of bumped into the wall, which shook me out. You know, sometimes when you smack a bum, right?
Yep.
You get attention, right?
You're like, yeah.
I hit the wall and I got some attention. Like, what? And it was like, go do it on your own. And I did. And I went and I did that trip with 5 kids and I pulled them in a wagon. And yeah, we were with the church family. But the point is I did it. And that was that first thing of like, you can do this. Yeah. I guess technically there was a pinpoint prior to that. But that was the energizing pinpoint. We will say the first one was like a star in the midnight sky, super far away, but at least gave me something. And that was an opportunity to be a board member on a school for kids with autism that eventually my kids were going to be able to go to. If I was a board member, I had guaranteed into this charter school their placement. So that was like this first thing, right? But it had nothing to do with abuse. Oh, but it had everything, right? Yeah. It was like my first escape out, and that was far, far, far away, that star and the building of the building and yeah. But it was that hopeful thing. And then when I did that trek, I was like, I can do anything. And everything fell into place so fast. It was just like pinpoint. And then it became this strong little beam, and the beam became a beacon, and it became this lighthouse. And I was in it. I was in that beam, and I was going. And there's so much more, but yeah, it was amazing.
Love that. And when we were talking last, we talked about being a beam of light for someone else and how, and so tell me that story. Cause about the refractory and the whole yes, tell me that.
The whole thing. Okay. So this goes into my second book, which is called Out of Darkness. Yes. And basically my first book is just the story. It's the slice of time. It reads like a novel. Like you don't want to put it down. You're like, oh my gosh. The next book is, what were the lessons that I learned, right? Because I had to capture that as well. So in the second book of Out of Darkness, that concept of you actually coming out of whatever was holding you trapped there comes with this point about the beacon of light. So if you think about a sailor out in the ocean and they see some light, it's usually as far away as that pinpoint, right? But as you are guided more and more directly to it, that pinpoint becomes stronger, becomes a beam, it becomes a beacon, right? And so suddenly you know the direction and it's this huge light and you've got it. Well, a lot of us might think, oh, that means a lot of people with their own light, because I believe that all of us have the light of Christ within us, that if we all get together, our light just gets brighter. That's not exactly true. It's not like adding a whole bunch of candles together. What it is as you approach someone, you physically as well as spiritually and mentally, you actually are a mirror to their light, or a lens or a mirror, however you want to look at it. And that actually stretches the light that person has, because light is a wave. And with that, it can be stretched, it can reach. That's why we talk about light years. That's why it takes so many, minutes for the sun's light to actually hit us, because it's stretching through space, right?
Yeah.
So we are this reflector, we are this lens, and we can help stretch or amplify someone else's light. So that whole concept of being one, being together, you are then stretching their light to go so much further than you could have possibly imagined. And it goes on. And the more that other people get involved, it just stretches further and further. So, as the science geek that I am, if you think of one candle, the strength of one candle power, the pool of light that is, that light is what is put, well, in the olden days, in a lighthouse with enough mirrors and lenses, it can be stretched out to 20 miles. One candle, 20 miles. A sailor will see that 20 miles away. Now they will see it as a pinpoint until they get closer, and then it becomes the beam to the beacon. Yeah. So that's the whole point of my second book is how do we follow that light? We have what I call a shame shadow. And a shame shadow is with you all the time. It's that negative voice. It's the naysayer. It's the thing that you hear like, oh, you're fat. Are you sure you want to wear that? You're going to eat that, right? It's all that stuff that's happening in your head. And I called it the shame shadow. Well, we have a choice. See, here's the thing. There's opposition in all things. Where there's going to be light, there's going to be darkness. Mm-hmm. And the truth of that is, as the sun shines on you, you are an absolute light, but behind you is a shadow. You cast a shadow. And that's how the shame shadow is. It's always there. But if we always leave it behind us, it doesn't mean it shuts up, but we can focus more towards our light, focus more towards the positivity. And then it slowly starts to drown that out. So which one are you going to listen to?
Right.
And that's the point, really.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I love how when I originally heard you talk about being a mirror for someone's light, it really inspired me because it felt like even if someone can't see the light inside of them, we can show them that they have light, right? Yes.
Right.
And helping others to see their own light and pull it out of them so that they can therefore go and help someone else do it. It is so amazing and inspiring. And I just think that that's what we were all put here to do, right? Is to help others do that. Oh, I just love that so much.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, it's so inspiring when they're like, that's my light? Really? Like, yeah, you have that worth. That's you, baby.
Oh my gosh. So tell us and I totally agree, right? Because sometimes you have to borrow someone else's belief in you to then begin to believe in yourself. So when you see someone else telling you that you can do it or knowing that you can do it before you do, it's so empowering because you're like, well, now I can't let this person down. They really believe in me. And then you start to believe in yourself. So it's my favorite thing that we've talked about so far. So tell us a little bit more about your great, incredible 9 kids. I know that you have...
Okay, my great, incredible, nice kids.
Well, no. I was talking about like how I know that you said that the older 3 are autistic. I know you have more than one that are deaf. How do you
2.
Okay, how do you handle all this?
Oh yeah, crazy amount, but really good. So yeah, my first 3 have autism, and then number 6 was born. So I got remarried, FYI. Like, so my first batch or my first 5 happened, and then we escaped and we were homeless, blah blah blah, and then eventually I started to date again. Yeah, and my profile picture, all 5. I'm like, package deal, who's ready? Yeah,
who wants it?
Who wants it? So kind of crazy, but eventually, yes, I did get remarried, and then had 4 more kids. Boom, boom, boom. And he had never been married. He had never had any other children, so he just accepted and fell in love with all the rest of us. And
real quick, I want to point out that step parents are like the greatest. Well, most step parents. I won't say about all because I know there are some terrible ones out there, but most step parents are like the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Like, taking on other people's children and loving them and loving their parent in such a unconditional way is just, I feel like they don't get enough props. I really do. I have an incredible
I have
husband.
to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sure as he has stepped up, right? He has stepped up with your kids. Yeah. It's incredible. I think about one story when we talk about step parenting, all that stuff. I think about Joseph. I think about he was picked to be this earthly father of Christ. Like, hello. Oh my gosh.
I've literally never thought of that before.
Oh yeah. Amazing. So like that's to me is like so confirming.
Wow.
Like it's so like even his family, he reached out to have a step to come in. And we don't know a lot about Joseph. It's not a lot about things that are recorded in scripture of him, but I just imagine him as this person that was so called, so honored, so worthy to, hello, I need you to be can you be the dad for a minute? Like, what? I mean, that's amazing. And we know and about Mary's story, and Joseph patiently did what he needed to do and stood up and stepped. And I wrote a whole thing about my husband, Scott, is that Scott is my Joseph, related to that entire story, because he stepped up, stepped in. Believe me, we've had mud on our faces.
Beautiful.
But it's amazing. And so with all of that being said, where we now have 4 together, so to speak, right? Biologically 4 together, 2 are deaf. And one of my deaf ones, number 8, also has autism. So it's like, all right, we get it. And so patience is taught on a daily basis. The opportunity to do that is there, to learn how to sign, to learn how to do these things, because it's for them. God gives us these families for us to raise and to help them show and understand what their light is, so that then they can turn around and show that to others. And it's ongoing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. So beautiful. You are an incredible, strong woman, so patient, so amazing. And I hope that everyone gets your 2 books. They are Pinpoints of Light and Out of Darkness. Where can they find those?
They can find them on Amazon. I have Pinpoints also as an audiobook, so on Audible is
beautiful.
also there. I'm recording in 2 weeks my Out of Darkness book, and that should be out by June. So yeah, Amazon, my website, www.apriltribegiauque.com. They're all there and available. And we have an incredible thing happening, and you and I have shared this a little bit, was the Pinpoints of Light across America, where I knew that the story of hope needed to get into the hands of people who needed the hope the most. Those that have just left abuse, right? They're walking shells. They really don't know if there's any hope. So many of them have been so broken. Yeah, they're physically away from the abuse, but there's so much recovery work and healing work that has to happen. And getting this book into shelters across the country, there's 11,000 shelters. So people have been amazing. They are like, can I get a copy? I'm going to take it to my local shelter. And suddenly this movement just exploded since June. And it's that piece of hope where they can read and identify what's happened, and they like, me too. And then they see, but there's so much more beyond. And she actually did it. It's not a therapist saying you can do it, or it's not a clergy saying keep going. And those people are important. Right. But when you have it from the source of someone who's been through it and knows it, there's just so much more truth there. And it's incredible to hear what's happening now in the shelters with it. And, you just never know how it's going to help
amazing. Out. Oh, I love it so much. And it makes me want to buy 2 copies of each book so that I can have one for myself and go donate them to our local shelter. So,
you bet. I will send them your way. You send me an address and I will send them your way.
I would love that. And, I would also love it if, we could stay connected and maybe collaborate, maybe work together, because this tribe of people has been on my heart for a while now. I'm just not really totally sure how to execute. So we'll talk offline about that, of course. But
you bet.
But yeah, us talking originally really solidified that. Because you gotta help these people, these women, understand that they are made for so much more than what they're
So much
currently
more.
experiencing. Let's
Yep.
do a quick rapid fire.
Okay.
Because this is my favorite thing. I love to learn more about my guests. So tell me about a book, article, person, or talk that's changed your life.
I would say, oh my gosh, there's so many. So I'll just name off one. I'll just name off one. It was actually an interview with a group called Studio C, and I watched this interview about her. One of the comedians that's part of that, she shared a birthing story of her first son, and I connected with that so great. I guess 9 kids, but she said when the baby was placed in my arms, I loved him so much, and he didn't do anything. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to perfect. I didn't have to please anybody. I could just be loved because I had breath. And that changed my life. It changed my life.
Make me cry. Ah, wow. That's so beautiful. Ooh, I need a minute. Okay. That is incredible. And I'll see if I can get the link from you for that to put in the show notes too, because I think
you bet.
Definitely want to share that. Okay. What is your I can't talk. Favorite Friday night at home?
Favorite Friday night at home is playing some games with the kids or my kids jump around a lot, right? So we have a movie on, but it usually turns into, how far can you jump over that? Let's see how many couch cushions awake you can jump over that. So I could lamely say, I was watching a movie with the kids. The movie's on, but we really turn it into this big, how far can you jump kind of thing.
Oh,
so
that's so
fun.
cute. I love that. I love that. And it's, it's making those memories, right? Like, how many memories are we really making sitting watching a movie? But, having a competition and being silly with each other always brings memories.
Always. Yeah.
So what was your dream job as a kid?
My dream job as a kid would be, I was going to be Mary Lou Retton. I was ready to go to Houston and just be part of the Bella Caroli camp. And I guess I would just be a gymnast for life. So I was going to be Mary Lou Retton. That's what I was planning on doing.
I love it. That's so awesome. And what is your next vacation that you're planning?
Next vacation that we're planning is to go to Lava Hot Springs in Little Podunk, Lava, Idaho, and just take our big old trip up there because it's something that I used to do growing up, and my older half of the kids have always been, but now the younger half haven't been because we've been in Texas for a while.
Good.
So we're headed up to Lava Hot Springs.
Oh, that sounds so fun. Yeah, you gotta, and it's going to be so incredible because your older ones will be like, oh my gosh, when we were little, we used to do this, and pass down those memories and stuff too. That's so fun. Okay. Yep. Last one. What is your best advice to help our listeners live with audacity?
Every time you leave a room, understand what everyone is feeling. If you leave the room and you've left them in despair or heartache or anything like that, you're not living your audacious life, right? You come into a room and you leave that room with them being better, lifted, cared for, loved.
That is so good. Oh, I love that. That's great advice and something I've literally never heard. So I think that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Awesome. It was so much fun having you here, April. I just love getting to talk to you and hear more about your story. I hope that our listeners pick something up out of here. I hope that they pass your book along to someone that they feel might need it. And I hope that together we have saved somebody's life today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been a huge blessing. Thank you.
And I will make sure that I put all of your links in our show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out or connect, then they can absolutely do that.
Awesome.
Hey, Boo Boo! Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you found value in this episode, do me a solid favor and take a screenshot, post it in your stories, and tag me. I love watching you grow and live up to your greatest potential. Let me cheer you on.